without further ado, hand over to Hatsuki Aishima. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mike and Paul, for inviting me to the workshop. I'm Hatsuki Aishima, and I work for the National Museum of Ethnology in Osaka. And it's called a museum, but we are a research institute with about 50 anthropologists working, and then many other research fellows. If you were looking for sabbatical destination, you can apply and come and spend a wonderful summer suffering of heat in Osaka if you want to. And then, and I'm a specialist of Egypt, and especially public culture and Islam. I've been working on something like representation of piety in media, or also the media consumption, about how Egyptians read or watch television, basically. And then my current project has moved away from just doing a discourse analysis about the piety and people watching TV, but actually doing something together with my Egyptian friends, namely playing karate. So I myself didn't have much experience, or had really no experience prior to doing these trainings in Egypt in karate. But then I have been training for a couple of years now, but I'm now green belt. Yes, it's not yet black belt. So my questions are about karate is extremely popular in Egypt, and people understand it as very much a sport of the middle class. So what is that these Egyptians why are they attracted to karate, and what they see the value in it, and then how this notion of social class are kind of achieved or performed through being part of karate community. So it is an ethnographic research plus looking at the history of karate in Egypt. So, but then for today's paper, I want to bring to this question of what it means to be global, like living in a globalized society or globalization. And then, we've heard a paper about America, Britain, and Japan, but also Egypt is going through globalization. And then, what is quite interesting while looking at the practice of karate in Egypt is that when you look at the case studies from Britain or North America, people associate karate or Judo or other sports like that we talked about, kendo, with Japan. But then in the case of Egypt, that's not necessarily the case. But they know that the karate is something kind of foreign, comes from Asia, and then what is important is that they receive karate in the Egyptian way, and that's what I want to talk about. And then also the last question I would like to address is, so what is it to study foreign culture, or acquire foreign culture and make it to your own national culture in the case of Egyptian case? So I think in case of Egypt, which is on the margin of what we perceive as a kind of global political economy, there has been interaction between the Japanese and Egyptians, or the Egyptians coming to Japan, Japanese going to Egypt. And one of the iconic case is that the 1864, this is still 4 years before the Meiji Restoration, Japanese samurai mission was sent to Europe to negotiate the deals about whether to open the borders, diplomatic relationship with Europe or not. And then on the way to Europe, they stop by first in China and see other countries, and eventually comes to Egypt, and then go up the Mediterranean to France, yes? And this is an iconic photo that 24 samurais are posing in front of the Sphinx. And those of you who've been to Egypt, you would have also done the same, right? You would pose in front of the Sphinx in the pyramids. And this is 1964, so Sphinx is still half in the sand, yes? Like it was in the process of being excavated. And what I would like to stress of this photo is that this is a photo taken by an British-Italian photographer called Antonio Beato. So I think this is a very important point, that this is a photo of the Japanese being in Egypt or the Orient, yes, the far place. But then we are looking at this experience through the eye of a European photographer. So in this case, whether it is possible for the Japanese to look at Egypt through their own eyes, or Egyptians look at Japan in their own eyes, or do they always have to have a mediator, which is in the case of kind of European or North American partners. So just to give you a general context of karate in Egypt, is that from my interviews, it seems like from the 1960s, karate lessons were given not just in Cairo, but all around. And then in the 1970s, as we have already seen with Dr. Nitta's first paper, that the Bruce Lee films become a global phenomena, and also in Egypt. So it's very important to stress that from the beginning, the karate practice from the Egyptian perspective was a part and parcel of like joining the global culture or having global experience. And then this was first introduced mainly as a military training, but then eventually became the sport of the youth. So President Sadat said that this is a very good sport, highly recommended for the youth. So he recommended many youth centers throughout Egypt to teach karate. And it's quite remarkable because even nowadays, there are only like 3 sports taught at youth centers in a popular neighborhood. 1 could be football, and 2 is karate, and then 3rd is maybe kung fu. So even until now, this trend is still very present. And then in terms of globalization, for instance, when I attended the belt test of school children in karate in Cairo, in the middle class neighborhood, that when the trainer talk about the importance of kata and how it has to be correct, yes, that you have to do the same movement, one of the first things they would say is that is because karate, when you practice karate in Germany or France or America, you do the same thing. So what you do here now is that if you want to be international and go outside of Egypt, you have to learn the same way so you can play with other people. So there's a very much of, there's always a stress, the part of it's a school children education, but also being part of the global community. And then, yes, and this is a photo of a trainer named Okamoto who arrived in the 70s, and then he stayed in Egypt. So somebody like him, and he didn't die in Egypt, but he spent most of his adult life in Egypt. And it was not the easy task, he says, at the beginning when he went, for instance, to Syria or to Iraq to train. People just didn't know what was karate. So this kind of short man, Oriental man, comes and then says, okay, I can teach you karate. And then he's meant to be giving training to the police officers or soldiers, but they wouldn't listen to him because they don't know what karate is. So it was very significant that in the 70s he was hired by President Sadat to come to Egypt, and then they really contribute to the spread of karate and also popularization of karate as a sport. And I just want to show you a short video clip which gives a very concise image of what I mean by, for Egyptians, karate is not necessarily about doing something Japanese, but then about being part of a kind of global martial arts or kung fu, basically, culture. And this is a very iconic film that was produced in 1993 in Egypt, and it's called Mr. Karate. And it's about a working class man who comes to Cairo after his father died. His father used to clean car windows. And then basically he's in a difficult situation, and he was training karate when he was younger, but then he broke his leg and he could no longer, his father couldn't afford the medication, so he comes to Cairo, he's still limping, and then he's imagining about himself being in this like a kung fu films. So and then he's there he's not so much about where karate comes from, but the fact that the karate is something foreign and global, and then it produces this image of heroes. And then that's what he wants to be. So, and then this is just the main song of this film. And this gentleman in pink t-shirt is Mr. Karate. It's very 90s. Nobody in Cairo walking in the middle of the street, you'll be hit and killed. So I don't know how they managed to film this. So this is his imagination. You know, he's having a hard life as working class man, but then he thinks one day he will be a hero, like these figures in the film. Os is like this karate os. Okay, so yes, it is a really funny film, but also beautiful in a sense of showing the complexity of life as a working class man in Egypt, but also it sort of shows how Egyptian films borrow the different kind of style of expression from very well-known Bruce Lee films and Van Damme or Jackie Chan, and then create their own work. And it's not so just about copying, but it's more like borrowing and creating something quite cleverly. So, and then a group that I am following now is called the Egyptian Traditional Karate Federation. And then why I'm doing this is that the Egyptian karate national team has been quite successful internationally. So many of the people I met so far before this meeting these traditional karate people, they didn't think it was important to see any connection that karate is related to Japan. Yeah, so many might say that karate might have come from Japan originally, but now Egyptian karate is strong enough, so now it's Egyptian. Yes, Egyptianized. And then in contrast, this group that was founded shortly after the 2011 revolution, they strive to reconstruct Egyptian karate's connection to what they think as Japanese tradition. And in that way, that this Egyptian karate master called Ibrahim Marhomi, who moved to Paris in the 80s, he returned to Cairo and then started this new type of karate training. And he claims himself claims himself to be a direct descent of Funakoshi Gichin, who's the founder of modern-day Japanese karate. And then there's Nishiyama Hidetaka, who's a Japanese karate master who moved to the States after the war. And then Ibrahim Marhomi is basically the modern-day Nishiyama. And you can see from this photograph that they are jogging on the beach, that there's a very, I think, a standard representation of karateka globally. Not in Japan maybe, but globally, that all karateka wants to jog on the beach, yes? So, and also Paul Barman has discussed in this point that the modern-day martial arts experience is something in between what people see in the films, mediatized, and what they actually do. So this is, again, a very good example that they are jogging on the very beautiful beach by the Mediterranean. And then this is and also very unique case that previously only children did karate in Egypt. So people would quit after maybe the age of 12 or 13. But this Ibrahim Marhomi's principle is that the karate ought to be a lifestyle. So in a sense, you don't quit when you're just 12 or 10, that you need to continue doing it. So it's very, very rare that these adults are actually doing a sport. These karate masters are, yes. So many of them, they just were giving trainings to children, but they never wore karate suit after age of maybe 17, 18, but they are now coming back to this training, and then training with the suit. So just to give you a quick summary of what they mean by return to tradition. So as I told you, one is to wear the suit, and then also to recite the dojo code, which is the Shotokan's 5 principles. And because they think that it's very important to think that the champion in traditional karate must be a champion in life. So it's not just about doing something while you're training, but you need to succeed not just in karate but also in studies, in a career, family, and friendship, so on and so forth. And then they have eliminated the weight restriction in the competition because they think it's more natural to fight with all weight. Yes, because they said if a guy comes to you and then want to have a fight or pick a fight with you on the street, would you ask your weight? No, right? So that's what they think, that this is more traditional and natural. So and also they have a discussion about what is the best standing position, what is the strongest, what is more natural. And then I guess all the karate schools have this kind of discussion, but also traditional karate school has one. And then yes, and they are quite, obviously this is after 2011, so all the Egyptians are quite nationalistic in their own ways. So they think, this is very important social reform they are contributing to make Egypt a better place. And what is quite crucial in the sense that what Marhomi does when he says that he's reviving the tradition in Egypt, that he talks about karate as an education. So he uses the word karate tarbawi, what he's introduced, because what this karate has roots in Budo. And then he uses the word Budo is a way of samurai, which over from the tariqat samurai. And then he says it's also a martial art. And instead of using the word funun qataliya, which is the Egyptian translation of martial arts, Arabic rendering of martial arts, he says it's a martial art using English word. And so from my perspective, who knows these Japanese words like samurai, Budo, so on and so forth, this seems very banal what he's trying to say. Yes, but then we are talking about these Egyptian children or adults who might be practicing karate for quite a while, but they were not exposed to karate's Japanese roots. So all this teaching that Ibrahim Marhomi is spreading seems somewhat kind of mystical. Yes, for instance, when I was attending a training with maybe 40 adults and then 20 children or something, and then Ibrahim Marhomi was talking about how to sit, and then this is because it's just sitting and bowing, how to begin the training. This is based on the Budo way, and because this is how samurai used to have a sword on the left side, so that's why you need to sit in that side. And then I was like, yes, okay, this is what the trainers all do. But then after this training, when I was going out with these people, I realized that not even half of these karate players in Egypt, they're very competent and very experienced, but they don't know what samurai means, for instance. Yes? So Marhomi says okay, karate is about Budo education, but they don't know the word Budo. Yes? And then they know the word martial arts, so okay, it's about sort of fighting. Of course, karate is martial arts. So from this, the followers Ibrahim Al-Homi has gained quite a lot of followers in 2011, and his movement has been quite successful. But then it seems to be rooted to the fact that he's an Egyptian who lived in France for 3-4 decades. And then he's bringing this Japanese karate via French connection. So this is basically just by hearing the word like Budo for the Egyptian ears is somewhat sort of both Japanese maybe, but also English in a sense of that there's something coming from the West, European. And then this brings like extra value to the Egyptian children or the adults who are training with Marhomi, because you get again this emphasis of being part of the global community. So yeah, this is a photo of Egyptian children doing like normal karate, WKF style normal karate. That you see that the children are just in the kind of t-shirt, and also the trainer is in t-shirt and trousers. And then that's a very normal style in Egypt. It's very hot, you don't wear the full suit. And this is a traditional karate school. Also, most of them are children, but they're all wearing this karate suit. Yes, all the time during the training. This is a normal mode. Yes, and also they're trying to spread the idea that it's not just for children, but also adults can start. So they have created the adult beginners class, which is in Europe, that is really normal, right? In Japan too, but in Egypt it's quite revolutionary to think that the adult who have no experience in sport can start sport at one point. Yes, so what is happening here as I said earlier, the karate has been very popular in Egypt, and then also been very successful internationally. And this is a very important mark for a country like Egypt. Karate is not the big and most important sport in most countries, but in a country like Egypt, which features very rarely in any international competition, sport competition, any gold medal is important, yes? But regardless of sport, in karate, even in karate, getting gold medal is a very big honor, because the Egyptian press will report in a way that this athlete is putting Egypt in the global map. So, why is Marhomi and stressing the necessity for change? And then the followers buying into his principles, his teaching. And there seems to be like a aspiration, well, since the revolution, there has been an aspiration for the just system and all like a new structure of society. And then many followers seem to have liked the Marhomi's idea that we're doing this karate, but in a different way. And that this would create, at least in the training, that somehow a utopian way of looking at the society in a different way, and find that at least during the moment of training, this utopian philosophy is realized. And then also, what is important for this purpose of this paper is that when you think about the globalization, and then especially the people who are not in the sort of Western context, a place like Japan or Egypt, the end of the two ends of the globalization, it's very difficult for these two areas to interact directly. And it is possible nowadays with like a communication, transportation improvement. However, there seems to be like a reality which is very hard to deny, that the West, whether it's talking about France or Britain or America, continue to play an important role in shaping and mediating the cultural interaction between Japan and the Middle East. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Great. Questions, comments?
So, what about judo? We talked about karate being middle class and being the most popular, but if you want Olympic gold medals, judo would be up there.
Yes,
yes. Does that have much popularity, and how is it situated in the class hierarchy?
The judo is popular, but it's much more like an upper class sport, because karate doesn't require much infrastructure. Whereas judo, you need a tatami mat, you need a suit. So it's popular, but among more wealthy class. You cannot imagine doing judo in an Egyptian sort of community center because there's just nothing. Mats, yeah. Yes, it is popular, but also Egypt doesn't fare well in Olympics anyways. So Olympics is not important for Egyptians. It's like for Americans, for Japanese, this is important. But for Egyptians, Olympics is not important. It's more important to win in Arab Cups, Mediterranean Cup. So, yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned on one of the slides that they're attempting to return, I think it's return karate to traditional roots.
Yes, yeah.
I think you know the question.
Yeah.
Are they aware that it's an invented tradition? Are they aware that the wedding of the gi, for example, is a modern invention and it's sort of, in terms of Okinawa karate and the roots there?
No,
they are very much filtered to a Japanese view, isn't it?
No, they are very modernist. So they believe that they don't know what the actual genealogy is, but they think karate is Okinawan, and then Nakoshi Gichin brought it to Japan, and their memories are not very well historicized, I have to say. But that's not the point, I think.
If it's anything like my local dojo, when I take my daughters, despite myself, they don't want to know. Right?
Yeah.
Yes. Every week the sensei says sayonara. Every week. And they believe it. I noticed this the other week. I was like, are they actually saying
sayonara? Kiai.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just Google it. And I was saying, and my daughters don't believe me. And I'm like, I actually said to the instructor, I'm like, am I right in this?
Yeah.
Are you letting them stick in? It's like, oh no, it's meant to be a spiritual. But they don't want to. There's Google. Kiai.
Yes.
Do I actually say Kiai? No one's ever asked that question.
Yes.
What does sayonara mean? How do you say see you next time in Japanese? Isn't sayonara? They don't want to know.
Yes, I think
we talked about this earlier, sorry to interrupt you. We were talking about certain people who like to wear black outfits, shall we say, and play in the woods with cosplay. And these are guys who I know who are teachers and so on, university graduates who think it's completely, really don't want to know. I think they really enjoy the idea of practicing martial arts rather than actually practicing martial arts.
Well, I think people like the fantasy of an Asian culture.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes. And also, it's important, the tradition is, in Arabic word, there's a word for, they use the word for taqlidi. And taqlid is a good, tradition is a good thing, but traditional taqlidi, adjective form of it, in an intellectual history context, has been always regarded quite negative since 19th century. So that's why I was really stricken by the fact that they used the word taqlid, because it's a French translation from the French is traditionnel. But taqlid usually sounds something like a negative, backward, or like something which is not quite right. Yes, anti-modern or something. But they're redefining what is traditional, because they like the idea that what they are doing have some genealogy. Although they don't really care what it is right or wrong, and they don't even know what Budo means or what who samurais are. But they like it how Maruhomi says, it's the way of samurai. It's so cool. Yes. But yes.
I was just going to say, I think there might be a similar thing across the whole region. I know you looked at Egypt, but I've actually got a girl from Israel training with me at the moment, and she said she shared very similar sort of stories to the ones that you've shared. And one thing that was interesting is that she said that when they take karate, you have to take dance as well. They're actually not separate. If you take dance, you do karate. If you take karate, you do dance. And they're actually linked. In wherever they practice, it's a requirement. You have to do both. So they have a bit like this. They've only recently started pulling in the Japanese influence almost back to tell them where it's balanced.
Whereas in Egyptian case, dance is bad. Yes, dance is quite bad, and then the karate is good, because they say things like, okay, ballet is just a dance, but the karate is useful in the sense that it's very middle class. Upper class you can do whatever. Working class you can do whatever. But being middle class in Egypt is very difficult. Yes, there's lots of restriction. And one of the things that you have to, whatever you do has to have a purpose, sense of achieving a goal. And then in that case, that the karate has a very well set standard, like belt test and competition. And then with dance, it's just a dance. And then in karate, you might become a champion, and that's another thing to do. But yeah, so in Egyptian case, that's very different. But yeah, but the dance and karate, of course.
Okay, I'll leave it at that because we're on time.
Yes.
And that's good. So thank you very much.